Díagweave, people of Ireland. My name is Simon and welcome to my island. Thank you all for the support you've shown on this channel so far, and I am happy to be bringing you more videos whenever I can. Today's topic I want to look at is an issue that has been festering under the surface of Irish society for quite some time, and it has culminated in the Enoch Burke case. Now, before I address what has happened with Enoch Burke over the last few years, first we need to look at what is transgenderism. Transgenderism originally comes back to an era of revolution and war, as it stems from a version of liberalism that is not very well known. There are two versions of liberalism that have existed in our history, first one being classical liberalism. Classical liberalism is the one most people have in their mind, the idea that the individual has the right to self-determination within a society and can carry out his life as he sees fit within the confines of the law. This goes all the way back to the Magna Carta and the Age of Enlightenment in Europe. However, classical liberalism is not the liberalism we see today. What we see today is a far darker version of that ideology, and that is Rousseauian liberalism. Rousseau was a member of the intelligentsia during the French Revolution. He espoused that not only can an individual have the right to self-determination, he also has the right to his own reality, that anyone can be whatever they want to be. And you can see where I'm going with this. Rousseau believed that a government must serve the social interests of the people, that it must carve forward what is acceptable and what is not, and to move progress ever forward until we reach the end of history. This ideology, Rousseauian liberalism, has taken the forms of progressivism and now transgenderism. Transgenderism being the most extreme version of an already extreme belief structure. With so many modern problems today, cost of living, outbreaks of war, resource shortages, this issue has been pushed to the back of many people's minds, but it is still there. It just works more in the shadows now than it could before, where it was far more open and far more available. It has seen the pushback, and now it must accelerate its plans to turn the next generation into them, otherwise it will fail. And that is the true crux of transgenderism, that the individual can choose how they believe their sexual orientation should be, that a man can decide to become a woman, and to have a government that supports that is the embodiment of Rousseauian liberalism, to have the social just government that will allow its citizens to become another version of themselves that they think aligns with them. To Rousseau, that is right. To the rest of us, that's insane. And now we have to deal with the repercussions of buying in to an ideology that is destroying our nation, destroying our society, and attacking the minds and souls of our children. That is seen nowhere better than in education. Within the educational system in Ireland, we now have SPHE, social, personal, and health education. This is a mandatory course that runs from junior infants all the way to junior certificates, so from the ages of 4 to 15, which focuses on the issues of sexual orientation, mental health, and so on. All the politically loaded issues and all the other talking points of the progressive ideology. All these issues are politically motivated, and in the past, in normal times, it would be relegated to the home, where the parents would discuss these issues with the children. To now, what we have where the state, the educational system, must become the parent of the people of this nation, as Rousseau wanted, where social progress comes from the government, not from families, not from parents. The children in these schools across Ireland are being indoctrinated into a belief system that will destroy our nation. Because they know that after hijacking the gay movement, which achieved equality in 1999 in Ireland, there is nowhere else to go but after other people's children. These creatures do not have children. They can't have children, and luckily, we're not at the stage of Huxley's Brave New World where they can clone children for them to do whatever they want with. Instead, they are coming after your children. It is the only way for their insane beliefs to survive past their generation. While normal people can pass on their values of morality through their children, these things cannot. They have to infect your children, ensure that their ideology survives into the next generation. But they do not even understand that it wouldn't even matter, for it would take one generation for no children to be born so that humanity would fail to exist. And they hope by then that technology will have moved so far that they can start cloning people. But that probably will not happen. When it comes to the Enoch Burke case, this is where we have seen the most pushback from an individual against this evil ideology that is haunting our educational system. Enoch Burke was a teacher at Wilson Hospital School in County Westmeath. He had been in education for 10 years, teaching history and German. And when new guidelines were brought out that teachers must abide by the sexual identification of children, basically those who identified because they were indoctrinated by the school's educational system as to whether they are not a boy and not a girl, Burke said no. He said it goes against his Christian values because he is a deeply Christian man, as many people still are in Ireland, being a nation of saints and scholars. In more sane times, this incident would not have gone above the principal of the school. It would have been looked at and it would have been accepted that, okay, no, we won't break the values of the Irish Republic. We won't go against the Irish Constitution that has clauses to protect religious expression. No, instead we are going to double down on our ideology and we are going to punish this man for speaking out against it. And that is what has happened to Enoch Burke since May 2022 when this started. Initially, after raising his complaint several times, he was placed on administrative leave. The school then got a High Court injunction against him, so he could not return to the premises. Enoch Burke refused this and returned to the premises in protest, where he was arrested. And what would follow would be Enoch Burke coming in and out of prison for over 700 days, in between a cell and a courtroom, trying to deal with the fallout of him standing up for his beliefs. Enoch realized that this wasn't just about him. This had to be a protest against what was being done to the children of our nation. That there had to be someone to push back against the horrors of transgenderism that was being inflicted upon our society. And it was not even Enoch alone that suffered under this. His family, who stood behind him as they should have been persecuted because of his actions. And both his mother and his sister have seen the inside of a cell due to them refusing to accept the court's decision on his actions. The educational department rejected his appeal for reinstatement and to change the guidelines. And what has essentially happened is, as of January 2023, he was effectively fired from the school. But this did not stop the numerous court cases that he would continue in and out of, while also incurring a huge amount of court fines, as he stood on the side of law and rationale, while the court stood on the side of ideology and refused to bend from said ideology. One judge even said that Enoch Burke's family were subjects of an extreme religious ideology and their actions and beliefs could not be accepted. If that's not the pot calling the kettle black, I don't know what is. We're now at a stage in Ireland where we have religious persecution against Christian teachers in a Christian school. Every form of the institutions, be it the educational department, be it the courts, be it the church, be it the state, are all infected with Rousseau's outlook on our world. that social progress must not just be pushed but forced through at every avenue, and that if anyone stands in the way of progress, they must be destroyed. Their lives must be upended, they must be kicked out, they must be turned into a pariah within the society. That is the kind of sick and twisted ideology we are dealing with, all for the sake of turning your children into monsters, indoctrinating them into a belief structure that will destroy our nation within a generation. But they don't care, because in their eyes, this is just, this is right, this is progress. Progress for the sake of progress sounds like the thought process of a cancer cell.
This needs to stop now. This is cancer. This is so much cancer that I can feel the tumors growing on my back.
And this ideology is well laid out within the Irish curriculum. Our schools have been turned into training camps for the next generation of woke, the next generation of trans people, against the wishes of the Irish people. No one in Ireland voted for these changes to Irish education. No one voted for the state to be the moral arbiters upon children. That role has always fallen to the family, to the parents, not to the state. This is the ideology we are dealing with. We are dealing with the spectre of Rousseau, who has survived into the modern day and thrived, because at a certain point we stopped asking if we should, rather we just kept going to see if we could. And that is where it must stop. To this day, Enoch Burke is still being dragged through the courts. He's incurred insane fines, and his family are still being persecuted. Do I believe every single thing he did in his conduct was right? No. But when you are facing complete political persecution with no avenue to contend this issue, to push back against it, when every part of the system is stacked against you, I'm amazed he didn't set the courthouse on fire. I would have. And it's not as if it is only relegated to education. It's not as if Enoch Burke will be the last man to be dragged through the court on this matter of religious persecution for his beliefs. No, we see it in every aspect. We've seen for years how businesses support the trans ideology. And granted, that has decreased over time, but you still see it rear its ugly head constantly. Dublin Zoo being a perfect good example on Mother's Day. I don't know how putting a cross-dressing man as the centre stage and supporting of mothers has anything to do with it, unless it's an ideological talking point. And with the HSE, we see how the government supports gender-affirming care, how hundreds of thousands of euros has been spent on sending people overseas so they could have essentially sex changes to then get into women's spaces and harass women, rather than helping people, I don't know, with maybe scoliosis who need treatment, but they don't matter because they're normal people. We don't want the normal people to be helped in Ireland. No, we want the weird people, the minority, the not even 1% of the population. In what world does that make sense? In what world do we prioritize the absolute minority over the majority? These people are morons. They have no idea what they are doing. They have no idea the level of contempt we have for them and what it's going to do to this country. Do they honestly believe the people are just going to stand by and let the project happen so that our children can be transitioned into monsters and then our country can fall apart after hundreds and hundreds of years of struggle from foreign rule? Do they really think we're just going to give up now? The Irish government, the Irish court, the Irish government, the courts, the government, the education, they're all marching themselves off the cliff of progress. They're all going forward with it because they know there's no way back in their eyes. To them, they must abide by the ideology, otherwise they have to face reality. And if there's anything Rousseau has taught them, it's that you don't face reality. We are now seeing government initiatives to continue the persecution against people who speak out against transgenderism, who speak out against the dangers that are happening in our schools. schools to our children. The government is going to bring about new laws that are going to curtail our freedom of speech. The ability for us to criticize, the ability for us to speak against and act against will be suppressed. The Garda Síochána will be given more powers. We will be turned into the same type of police state that the UK is in right now, where you say one thing online that is against the ideology, that's it, you're booked. We'll send you to Mountjoy prison, just like Burke, we can share a cell together. That is what they believe. That is what they're going to do. Enoch Burke was not the first person to push back against this ideology. He was the first person to refuse to accept the judgment rendered against him by the ideology. And now him and his family are paying the price. And so are every single child in our education system. Every single child has to go through and have their minds warped away from normalcy towards insane beliefs. All for the sake of this ideology, all because Rousseau had his views all those years ago, and now we are stuck with it. We're stuck with this insane belief until we can change it. And the only way that can happen is by changing the government. All change must come top down. We cannot reform the education system. We cannot reform the courts. We cannot reform the police. The only thing that can be done is removing the socially progressive government that Rousseau always wanted from power. Remove that, instill a nationalist government, and you can fix these problems. So incidents like Enoch Burke don't happen. That people aren't persecuted for having values that are against this evil ideology. This evil ideology can finally be put to rest and sent to the dustbin of history where it belongs, the corpse of Rousseau buried. Until that happens, until we see some political movement that can actually change Ireland, that can actually put the fear of God back into the people who are trying to bring about our destruction and the destruction of our children. Until that happens, we are in a sorry state as a nation. It makes me horrified to think what raising children is like now. I've always wanted to have children, but to look at the Irish education system and I dread the idea of sending my son or my daughter through that. To have their minds warped, to have their views on simple topics mutilated, to have them view their parents as the enemy. It is sick, it is destructive, and it must stop. What has happened to Enoch Burke is a crime. What is happening to our children is a crime. And we need to change it. We need a party to change it. We need a political vision for this country that will actually return us to normalcy, because we greatly lack normalcy. God. But that won't happen until we get our act together, until we can put together some form of cohesive belief structure that allows us to fight against transgenderism and progress and Rousseau. And until that day comes, we're unfortunately in the trenches with people like Enoch. And I wish him all the best, because it is a horror what has befallen him and others like him that have come before. But I commend him on his fight, because it brings attention to the issue. And that is what they hate the most. They hate us looking. They hate us seeing. They hate us knowing the truth of what they're doing. Because the more people that see it, the more people that know, the more people will know they have to stop it. And that's what we must do. We must stop what is happening to our schools, to our children, to our future. And on that, I think that's where I will finish up. So I hope you found this video interesting, and I hope you share my concerns about what is happening in our schools and what will happen if this is not stopped. So, Slán go fóill, Éirinn Go Brách.
Hush a vocal, hush and listen, and his cheeks were all aglow. I bear orders from the captain, get you ready quick and soon. For the pikes must be together at the rising of the moon.